Hey, my ADHD family. Welcome to another episode of ADHD Love Parent Talk. I am excited today because I don't get many men on ADHD Love Parent Talk. So I'm excited to have Josiah. I did pronounce that correctly, right, Josiah?
Yes.
Perfect. And I really just want to dig into his story, just talk a little bit about ADHD, because one of the things that I want parents to know is that there are different experiences, even though we all have ADHD. And I want him to talk about his background, maybe even talk about some tools that he has learned in his journey. So you have tools that you can put in your toolbox that you can use for your own children. So Josiah, welcome. I'm excited. I'm excited to have you.
I'm excited too. It's been a long time since I've been on Clubhouse, which is where we initially met. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, me too. I've kind of disappeared on Clubhouse, mostly because I was addicted to it. And to say the least, like I was on there all of the time. So I was like, okay, I have to drop a little bit.
The exact same thing happened with me. The exact same.
That is too funny. So please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So obviously my name is Josiah Sanchez. I'm an emotional intelligence coach. I specify in metacognition and behavioral management. Kind of staying on the topic of ADHD here, I grew up with it. I got diagnosed whenever I was in third grade. And that's when they, I think, initially diagnosed Zoloft or Ritalin. It was one of the two. And I actually I had to get put in a separate school. It was called like a Rexon or something like that. So like right out of the jump within my adolescent, time frame, I was already separated from the kids, from the sociality of, being immersed in public schools. All right. And so that carried on all throughout the third grade, and then fourth grade, I was back in school and, getting into high school, which is when I kind of cut the medication essentially on my own. I was not myself. And the way that my parents used to always tell me was, they couldn't handle me without it, but they also couldn't tolerate me with it because I was very short fused and I was very aggressive. Right. But without it, over the top, I had no idea how to really understand myself, really learn how to manage and be aware of, okay, what are these emotions showing me? Right. I got to be able to gauge it to be able to understand and manage it. And so went throughout my high school year, all 4 of my high school years, really learning about myself from the very deep depths of, okay, this is happiness. Okay, this is what, reading the room and saying, okay, this is how I should feel happiness, not screaming and being loud and doing all that. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm scared. Okay, this is what I can do whenever I'm scared. This is how I act whenever I'm scared. Okay, let me manage this. Oh, I'm frustrated. Okay, instead of being physical and punching walls and having an entire episode unfold. Okay, here's what's frustrating me. This is why it's frustrating me. Okay, let me gauge this. Let me, do something with it. And after high school, I got into fitness, and fitness was kind of like that cover up from, my philosophy, which I don't know if it was placebo or not. If I was able to drain myself physically, then my mind didn't have enough time to race because, you're exhausted. You really don't even want to think at all. And so I kind of used that philosophy and went through fitness, did bodybuilding, and then really wanted to dig into, the emotional, the thought process that kind of goes within men, within women, and everything. And so my ADHD, the journey I took essentially shifted into everything that I teach. And even though it's not, strictly ADHD demographic style per se, it allows everybody to be able to understand themselves from the deeper parts of ourselves that really guide us throughout our day-to-day lives. So.
Love that. And I got so many questions for you because I really want to break that down. But before I do, so audience, if you can relate or have any comments to what Josiah is saying, definitely put them in the comments below and share your experiences. And also don't forget to subscribe because there's more stories like this. So Josiah, okay, so let's start from the beginning. So what was that tipping point explain a little bit more. What was that tipping point for you to even get diagnosed? I mean, what did they see that said, you know what, we need to actually go and check out to see what's going on with Josiah?
So with me being in third grade, my memory is a little bit blurred there, but honestly, I believe that I couldn't sit still. I could not, again, I was very over the top, right? There was nothing that could be cordially expressed. And so it was a lot for my parents to handle. And I remember, we're going to call her Dr. X. She, every single time I went in, all my mom had to say was, yeah, he's still getting in trouble in school. He's still doing this, up the dose. it wasn't even really about me. It was more so, okay, he can't sit still. He can't keep to himself. He talks a lot. So we got to up the dose. And so it was almost like, and I didn't recognize that until later
Mm,
on, whenever I was like, well, what about how I'm feeling? Like,
yeah.
have you guys asked me how I feel on the medication? Because I was on multiple pills and a patch, and the patch started leaving scar tissue.
Wow.
And so it was started with an N. I forgot like what exactly it was. But I had a patch and I took medication. So I was a robot. I was a zombie.
I
I
bet.
was dead, it seemed. And so it was up to almost the max dose. And essentially because I didn't understand what I was really doing in the first place, I was so
Right.
young. I just kind of followed, oh, if this is what my parents say I got to do, then I got to do it. I guess I'll just kind of tolerate it. And so as far as the tipping point, I would honestly say, after looking back and recognizing, okay, that is how I act. That is how I kind of blow up. That is how
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
talk really fast and force myself to get attention. I think that was more so like, okay, we can't tell him not to do something because he's not going to listen. So let's just kind of find something to kind of give us a lending hand with allowing him to manage something.
Okay. So there weren't really strategies in place. I mean, they really just put you on medication. And it sounds like you said that you were pulled out of the social environment. So did you go to a different school?
Yes, for third grade, I was pulled out, I think a few months in, and I was at a separate school. I think it was called the Rec Center, and there were other kids there. And at the time, I wasn't able to really like recognize it. But I mean, I made friends there, and like what's crazy, leaving, like I didn't want to leave because I found people that were just like me. All
Mm.
right. And so, but I came back to the third grade, and people were like, yo, where'd you go? Like, you just disappeared and now you're back. What happened? And at that point, I was just like, yeah, I was just at a different school, and people thought it was like uh, a detention style of like separate school for like disciplinary actions and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was pulled out and then I was put back into public schools later that year. I was in there so I could logically take the benchmark, I think is what they had at the time. Took those, writing, reading, went back, and then I was in public schools ever since, but right back into public schools, principal phone call, principal phone call, principal phone call. My mom had my fifth grade assistant principal on like recognizing her phone.
Speed
So
dial.
speed dial. It was that bad.
No, I understand. I mean, I have a son, so that's kind of what we went through for a good portion of the beginning of his years is I got phone calls. And actually I got it from my daughter too. Literally got phone calls almost every day. I mean, it was to the point where I would cringe when I would see those numbers pop up. And I'm gonna
Mhm.
tell you, Josiah, I tell this to people that my kids were going to a Montessori school and I purposely put them in separate classes. They're 2 years apart, but the way the Montessori school is set up, they could have been in the same exact class. And they separated them. I had forgotten their lunch one day. I walk into the building, I go into the office, and both of my children were sitting in the office. And I just looked at them. I gave them a hug because I figured they didn't call me that day. And I gave them their lunch and I walked out of the building. It was
Here you
like,
go. I'm out.
I know. I was like, well, you guys didn't call me. But yes, both of them were in the office at the same time for something that happened, some outburst or whatever. So, no, I completely understand. I completely understand. So, it's really interesting because one of the things that we talk a lot about is number one, you talk about the pills, right?
Mhm.
But you can't have pills without skills, right? And then
Yeah.
number two, at least in our school system, one of the things I talked to the teachers and the principal a lot was avoidance. You can't just avoid my child. We have to actually put things in place to make sure
Mhm.
that such and such doesn't happen again, right? If he's having outbursts, helping him actually work through those outbursts to see what's going on, what's really wrong, right? You talked about that emotional piece. What's
Mhm.
really going on with you? So what do you wish that they had done differently, back then? I mean, even if, you had balanced it with pills and not just giving you a whole bunch. I mean, I can't imagine you being on two pills and a patch. That's crazy. So what do you wish that they had done differently? Or what could you advise parents to help guide them from your experience if they're dealing with their child like this in school systems?
100%. And, I've gotten a few, biased opinions from this, but I think with all kids, but more so, especially highlighting the ADHD fact, you have to listen to your child. you have to listen to your child. Just because as a parent, you see it as like, I can't handle this. This is too much for me. Just telling them to sit down and be quiet. The more you tell any child to not do something, they're going to do it 3 times what you told them not to, right? Your child has the best grasp on it rather than you, because they know the root of what they're trying to get you. I just wanted attention, right? I wanted attention, and I wanted to get it in any shape or form, whether that was breaking something, whether that was trying to be the center of attention, being super goofy and obnoxious during parties. Like, I wanted attention because it was, here's the pills, go off and do your own thing. And that was it. Yeah. And so as I'm not a parent, but I am in a relationship with someone who does have a daughter, and she may or may not have ADHD because she has ADHD. And so one of the things is like, you have to listen to your child because they're going to tell you more than you could ever assume, right? Sitting down and saying, hey, what's on your mind? And also recognizing from a distance, when do they typically get frustrated? When do they typically do an outburst? Because there is a pattern, right? If they don't recognize it, you're cognitive enough to be able to make that differentiation. Notice how they get frustrated. Notice what they're doing. If they're happy or if they're quiet, what are they doing? What are they partaking in? What are they escaping to, right? You can't get all the answers from your child, but you can allow them to speak to you rather than you tell them, go to your room, be quiet, don't break anything, or hey, like, shut up. Right? You cannot do that. You're only going to make them do more of what you're trying to get them not to. Right. So as far as parents go, your child is going to guide you through this parenting experience. Your child is going to give you as much insights as they can, but as the parent, you do have to give more effort to notice and recognize where these emotions come up, because they're not quite cognitive enough to get there. All right. Yeah. And then as far as schooling goes, the one thing I wish they did, because I know I kind of struggle with it. I knew that I had, at the time, this almost disability, it seemed. I didn't want to be treated different. And so I didn't want the extra help. Teachers still gave it to me kind of very subliminally. But there were multiple times where it was like, okay, I don't want to be treated differently. I just want to come to class. I want to do what I want to and just leave. Right. There were certain things in place that I wasn't quite aware of that my mom actually had the school do. So like, I got more grace periods than other students did for turning in assignments, even though my mom still has an email from my senior year saying I still had 77 missing assignments. Schooling was not for me. Schooling was not for me.
It's too funny.
But as far as if I could sit in front of 1,000 teachers and I were to explain to them a little bit more with ADHD individuals, the best thing you can do is, as best as you can, even slip a note to the kid. Hey, come see me after class. It's nothing bad. I just want to talk to you. You got to have that one-on-one, because if you blur something out in the middle of the class, other students may say something and make them feel even less than, right? If you spend a little bit more time, some people may assume like, oh my gosh, he's, why is he or she getting all the extra help, right? Even though people's opinions are always going to be there, as a young and still growing kid, teenager, child, they're very influenced by that and they're very affected by that. And so I wish teachers would just take a little bit more time and really break down, just like a parent, hey, like, how are you feeling? I noticed you were kind of out of there. Is there anything on your mind? All right. What's been kind of bothering you? Right. Hey, I noticed you got a little frustrated and we lost you. You were gone the rest of the class. What frustrated you? Right. Can I separate you from the student a little more? I've actually had teachers rearrange the entire seating arrangement for me. Right. They put me on the opposite side, but the way the students saw it, hey, I've done a little rearranging with all the seats. And so it was like, okay. And I've only had one teacher like that, but I wish they would, just as parents, you've got to listen to your students. You got to listen to your kids.
Yeah, no, I love that. And to your point, because one of the things that you pointed out is listening to the kids, but then also on top of that is not being afraid to advocate for your kid, right? So now you've heard them. So that's kind of the relationship my children and I have, is now I've heard them. And now I take it back to the teachers to see how we can make situations better. And it's, my it's kind of funny because the teachers know me very well, right? Now I don't get phone calls, but I definitely stay in touch with them because I want everybody to have a successful relationship, right? I want my son and daughter to be successful. I want them to have that accommodation. I think another thing that I run into is parents feel like, well, you're not going to get accommodations, as you get older. So why in the world would I ask for it for you in school, right? Having that mentality. And I mean, I literally just had a conversation about that with someone, about somebody's child. And you've got to be okay with asking for those accommodations. We are so busy fitting for those who are neurotypical, right? Why not? Why not fit the world for those who are neurodivergent? It's okay. And it's amazing how much better my children have done since those accommodations have been put in place, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%, 100%. And, building off of that, and that's where that specific mentality, like you're not going to get them now, or you're not going to get them then. So it's not incorporate them now. You're teaching your kid to mold themselves off of other people, not really express their individuality and creativity the way they want to. I've had conversations with my best friends. I've had conversations with, jobs that I've had in the past, like, hey, I'm more of a visual learner. Like, can you run that back for me just one more time? Like, just kind of paint a picture. Oh, 100%. Absolutely. People are a lot more understanding, but they move off of their experiences as when they were younger, how they kind of experienced that. They're not really looking at, well, what can you create? What relationships can you create that are understanding of that? My best friends, I communicate very closely with them. Like if I'm bothered, or if I'm frustrated, if I'm under the weather, if I'm feeling down, I can communicate with them. But I can also communicate towards like, hey, you guys, I just want to vent. Please don't say anything back. It's going to get me frustrated, and I know it's going to, because that's just how I am. Do you mind if I just vent? 100%, go for it. Right. Those accommodations are going to come. You honestly just have to ask for them.
Right.
And so they're always there. But that's the mentality of like, well, I didn't get them, so you're not going to get them.
Yeah.
So, and that's a dangerous thing, because you're teaching your neurodivergent, child, hey, all these things in your mind, go ahead and try to discard them and just follow.
Yeah.
And that's just not how we work. It's not how we work at all. So, 100%.
So, if a parent is even struggling whether they should even get their child diagnosed or not, because obviously you have all of the, this is my favorite question to ask, because people are really about the stigma of the ADHD diagnosis, and they are about the label. So what would you say to parents if they're on that fence on whether they even should go and get them assessed?
I would pay attention to your child first. Right? Look beyond the initial annoyance, look beyond the initial frustration of yourself that you are getting from your child. Have a conversation with them, right? This kind of goes back to, I think it was the first question we asked, recognize, incorporate as much as you can. And if you see some things working, but some things you just can't fully get a grasp on, I would ease your way into getting assessed, right? Because there's nothing wrong with it. However, within myself and within some of my other friends that are ADHD, they go in, they say a few symptoms, diagnosed. And I'm just like, did they ask you really about you? And I was like, no, not really. And I was like, okay. Right. As a parent, listen as closely as you can. Incorporate as much on your own, because now if you incorporate things on your own, if you can bring them to awareness of themselves, be like, hey, I've noticed this kind of gets you frustrated. It does? Yeah, it actually does. Like, is there something that kind of bothers you with it? Does something like not work out right? Does this person just like not treat you right? Do they not, do they play too aggressively with you? Or, is this teacher, this class, I'm noticing these things. What is it? Do you know? No, it's just like nobody listens. It's just, I feel like I'm unheard. Okay, we're getting to the root. Okay. All right. You're slowly digging into frustration, anger, uncertainty, doubt, happiness, excitement, and you're able to really gauge, okay, this is where it's coming from. I want to feel it, right? And you learn self-control after learning, okay, I think that might've been too much. Awareness, self-control has now been incorporated and established. But I would definitely just listen as much as you can, and incorporate as much as you can with, because you are the driver. If you're the parent and your kid has ADHD and there's a lot going on, you can drive this in one of two directions. You can drive it out of your control, therefore potentially distancing the relationship you have with your kid, right? Or you can lead it to where you can have that connection. You can incorporate some medications if they are there to kind of sharpen some skills up for them, especially in job interviews or during tests or something. But make as much of it as holistic as possible, right? If you have to incorporate it, absolutely, but do as much as you can. Is that going to require a little bit more effort on your end than someone who deals with someone who's very introverted and keeps to themselves? Absolutely, right? But that comes with it. But you're going to create a much stronger relationship with them, and they're going to want to come and talk to you. They're going to want to, hey mom, hey dad, there's something bothering me, and I just can't, I'm feeling short fused and I just want to punch something. Okay. Let's talk about it. Right. What's going on? Right. I thought I had this assignment due tomorrow, but it was due yesterday. How did I forget? How can I be so forgetful? I'm so dumb. I'm so stupid. No. You're not dumb and you're not stupid. How can we help you remember better next time? Right. You're creating that open door for communication. Right. And so listening as best as possible. Whatever you do, stay away from, well, just do better next time. Listen, just don't feel that way. Just don't feel that way. Listen, it doesn't even matter. Listen, it doesn't matter. Just push aside. You want to understand where these emotions are coming from. And as the parent, as they're growing, they're looking to you for guidance. They're looking to you because you've experienced more life. Don't make them shut their life out early just off of your impatience with them.
Right.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah. And you talked about something that's very important. So I've had to change my parenting style, right? I grew up a certain way. I was parented a certain way. I started that way and I no longer parent that way. And I'm okay with it. I mean, because to your point, there are a lot of things that I do with my children that my parents didn't do. And I'm not saying that they were horrible parents or wonderful parents. It's just that, to your point, that emotional intelligence, that listening piece is huge. I mean, I will sit there and listen to, my son can talk. Well, actually they both can, but he is the one I would say was really given the opportunity to sit and talk where there was adults listening. And that was because it was part of his program, right? So he really learned to express his feelings more than a lot of kids his age. I mean, he can really tell you what is going on, how he is feeling, how he could have upset somebody else, how that person upset him. I mean, he can go into detail. And that's because we put that piece in place where people sat down and listened. And I also keep the door open where, say, if it is a conflict with someone else's child, I still will have the parents sit and listen, because I don't even want them cutting my child off, but I'm also giving the other child a chance to talk and share their experience. Because to your point, the more we're able to open up and share, the more that people are going to be able to talk through conflicts. We're so busy shutting our children off. They're not going to learn to talk to conflicts and figure out what's going on with them if we just avoid it,
Yep.
And that's could be very frustrating. So, for example, my child a couple of years ago had a conflict with another child. And I used to sit on the board of a Montessori school. And and I'll be honest with you, that's where I really learned it. They had it was almost like a process for children conflict management. Like, these kids could sit there at 4 and 5 years old and talk about what was going on with them. And it was because they were about guiding the kids through, hard situations, right? Why did you yell at me? Because it seemed like you were mad at me for X, you know what I mean? Like, really talking in detail. So when my child had this issue with another child, I said, you really should use this technique. Oh, it's not going to work. Why don't we just put the other child in a different class? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. We're not up and moving kids, because they had an argument or two, okay, maybe about 10, but still, we're not moving him, right? Why don't you just try this? And so his specialist decided that she was going to take it on. Long story short, it worked so well. By the end of the school year, the other child invited my child to his birthday party. And that's because they were able to work through the conflict at 8 years old. You know what I mean? So to your point, listening, teaching them how to talk through their emotions, helping them work through conflict with other children makes a huge difference, especially for children with ADHD, because to your point, if they can't express themselves, they'll find a different way to do it, right?
Yep. And that's probably gonna be in ways where as a parent, you're probably not gonna like the outcome of it in some shape or form. So yeah, and that's another thing, like communication is huge. But a lot of us are a lot of ADHDers, a lot of, and even just regular people, but strictly for ADHDers, we see a conversation as immediately confrontation before the conversation even starts. And it's just like, let's flip this around, right? Let's communicate, let's comprehend. Rule number one, the goal is not to say that you're right and this person's wrong. The goal is to say, I thought this, you thought this, okay, we did not match. Let's find a middle ground and let's see where we can keep it cordial or solve this problem.
Yeah.
All right. So it's huge. I love that.
Yeah, that's very cool. So for those who, especially men, I mean, I think one of the things that at least I know in my generation, the one thing that we talk about is how men do not tend to share what is going on, especially around mental health. So you're very open and you are, you're talking about it out there and you're sharing your experiences. For those who don't know how to share their experiences or who want to keep it closed in, but really do need to work through it, what would your advice be to them?
It's going to be very cliche, but journaling. All right. It is a very cliche thing, but a lot of men are grown up around suck it up, provide for the family, work hard, be persistent, never give up. They're not taught that in order to get to those things, or when you on the journey to get to those things, you're going to feel a lot of things. You are going to feel stressed. You are going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to get in a relationship. Your heart may be broken. You're going to shut that out. You're just going to, it's no big deal. I'll get over it. I'll just deal with it. I'll push it aside. Men have this stigma that we're the providers, we're the biggest and the baddest out there. We have all the answers, and that is not the case. That is not the case. And I've dealt with so many clients of my own, I've had clients that were 45 plus that grew up over this alpha male mentality. And after the program, he said, I feel like my life is just starting because now I'm able to do it as myself. All right. So with men, journaling is probably the best thing. All right. How am I feeling? I'm feeling good. Why are you feeling good? Well, this happened today and it worked out great. This worked out great. Okay. What do you want to do with it? I want to embrace it. Like, I don't really feel this too often. My schedule is like, it's super busy. Absolutely. Is there anything that you want to learn from it? I want to learn how to be present. Okay. Run it back now. How am I feeling today? Stressed and I'm overwhelmed. Where did it come from? I got work. I'm packed out the wazoo. Like, I've got friends that need my help. I got this, I got that. Okay. What do you want to do with it? I want to alleviate it. Right. How can I do that? All right. Well, I can take a few things off my plate. I can, move these plans over a few days. I can, cancel plans if need be, and I can take some time to myself. Okay, cool. We figured out what it was. We validated our feelings. We found out what we wanted to do with them. And then we started acting towards that. All right. There's a process to this. And to men, it's always think logically. Don't let emotions get the best of you. When you think logically without any emotional awareness, that's ignorance, and that's avoidance. Logic that's placed in the best way possible with the best amount of insights is understanding where the emotion is, that you now flip a switch and be like, okay, this is what's going on. this might get in the way of a few things, but I know exactly where it's coming from. What are some logical ways? How can I just get through this? I can have this sit in the back seat, but I don't have to have it drive me to where I'm trying to get to. I can still use my logical sense. I can still be solution oriented and still find a way through. Right. So starting point would easily be journaling, because that is a way where you don't have to immediately go out, talk to people and feel weak. You don't have to immediately immerse yourself. And you might have people that discard that because they grew up the same way. Right. So being able to immerse yourself within you and say, you know what? This is all about me right now. This is how I'm feeling. And this is why. This is what I want to do. And that's probably not the best solution. How can I alleviate that? How can I, bring myself back to myself in a calming manner? All right. And that comes back to self-awareness, right? We live on such an autopilot standard whenever it comes back to like understanding who we are, the things that make us happy, the things that spark our creativity, the things that frustrate us, the things that keep us calm. We have no idea. We've given it no attention. We've allowed so many things externally to guide us.
Yeah.
And so, especially for someone like me, writing, like if I were to pull out my notes, I have actually 2,100 notes in my phone.
Wow.
2,100 notes in my phone. And they all started towards the end of that senior year, to where it was like, I got a lot on my mind and I got to get it out somewhere. I think too quick. So if I physically write, I'm going to forget what I'm writing halfway through. Let me type it out. Let me do it quick, and just kind of save it. And then over time, I started just sharing it with people. And then as I kind of started sharing it, people were like, wow, this actually helps me actually. And I was like, wow, because it was just meant to help me. All right. Over time, it's become a lot more than that. And I've structured so many things around journaling and just writing things out to where it's like, it's a huge passion for me. And that's actually why I got my writer's feather.
Oh, nice.
Right here.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful thing, but journaling, that's a starting point.
Okay,
very cliche, but a lot of people just don't know how to do it. It's just gratitude, affirmations, and then goals. Well, if after you finish, you're no longer grateful, you're no longer affirmed, and those goals no longer matter, you just did something to justify that you did it because you see everybody else do it. So find a structure for you.
I like that. Yeah. I need to get him back into it, because that's what we actually started with, was the journaling, because of all of the frustrations he was going through. So, and that was very helpful. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely put that on the list. I'm like, okay, I'm writing things down in my head, Josiah.
We know how well that works. You might need to type it out real quick. Hold on.
I know, right? Right. Type it out. Okay. So you mentioned journaling. Is there anything else that has helped you through your journey? So whether it be podcasts, YouTube, books, has there been any other tools that have helped you just grow? You even talked about exercising. What else has helped you through your journey?
So in all honesty, I grew up with, podcasts, of course, but the podcasts that I listened to were very hustle culture, very suck it up and get through it. And at the time I was like, oh man, this is perfect for me. Right. By the time I really started understanding my mental health about 2.5, 3 years ago, I was like, okay, there's obviously more than just sucking it up. Right. So that's when I got immersed in writing, like a lot more. That's when, honestly, to be completely honest, movie instrumentals and meditation music. I will literally work out to the most calming thing in the world because it keeps me calm. I will drive and I will just have some calm. So there's this artist, his name's Tony Anderson. And I have so many of his albums on my playlist, and they're just instrumentals. They're just some calm orchestral strings. Some of them are cinematic that could be cool for like motivational stuff, but very calm sounds, because it allows me to not be influenced by lyrics, but it also allows me to stay calm without the super hard bass of like rap music or dubstep or all this other genres that they have out there. Yeah, it's cool to listen to, but when it comes to me, my goal is always to understand and keep this room up here as clean as possible. Right? As cluttered as it may seem, I know that my pencil is under that shirt that's under those pants that I threw down there a few days ago. I know that's there. I want to keep my house as clean as possible up here. So if something's bothering me, no lyrics, no nothing, throw some instrumentals on, be immersed within myself and just sit. It doesn't necessarily have to be like meditation, but what is on my mind right now? Right? Let that kind of sit for a little bit. Do some breathing, do honestly, yeah, breathing and let the music just kind of guide and really show you really what's going on within your mind without any specific influence in any direction, whether that's R&B or rap or rock or whichever it is. But just allowing that time within myself.
I love
That's
that.
interesting. So I guess summed up, it would be writing, instrumental music, no lyrics, and then solitude, and then breathing.
Love that. I love that. So is there any last thing or just any last minute thought or anything that we missed that you want to share with the parents? Any
Honestly,
closing remarks?
What's crazy is like you touch base on absolutely everything. You've done an amazing job with this interview. I haven't had a structured interview quite like this ever before. So I'm definitely giving you props there. Definitely, I got to give credit where credit is due. We've touched base on everything. I would definitely recommend anybody who watched this, you want to watch it back. All right. Because right now with me saying that, you're remembering certain parts, but you might be forgetting the small details within it. Go back, watch it again, take notes, and listen to it. You don't even have to watch it, because I think you put this on YouTube as well. Listen to it and just let your mind be sparked by what's said. So that way, visually, you're not distracted and you're not already putting your mind in more places than it can carry itself. But honestly, yeah, I think you've done an amazing job here. We've touched base on everything. And I think the basis of it all would be listening. Listening is a huge thing. Listening and then leading the way, because we have the control to do that. We can listen and we can lead. All right. We just got to put forth that effort to do so, especially with our kids or within ourselves. All right. So that is what I would honestly say. 100%.
Awesome. And then if anybody has any more questions for you, Josiah, how can people get a hold of you?
So my IG, I started a brand new one because my other one was built off of fitness, and I was like, this is not me anymore. The new IG is Josiah's Perspectives. You can find me on IG, and then I just launched my podcast, as you and I were talking a little bit before this. You guys can kind of hear a similar story that I kind of shared here on Flipping the Script Within You. It's on Anchor, and it's still loading on Spotify. I launched it today. Going to be a lot of episodes there, but I'm super excited for that. But yeah, IG, Josiah's Perspectives, and then podcasts on Anchor and Spotify, Flipping the Script Within You.
Awesome. That is so cool, Josiah. So thank you. Thank you for coming on. I'm so glad that you came.
I'm so excited I did too. I didn't know what to expect, but I was like, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time.
Of course. Of course. Okay. Now I'm going to close it up. All right. Everyone, that concludes another episode of ADHD Love Parent Talk. If you want more content like this, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you liked this story, because Josiah is awesome, as you know, please make sure you like the content. And again, if you are going through your own experiences, like Josiah has described, and especially I really liked the theme around listening, share your experiences below. And what do you do with your children when they are going through their ADHD journey or having some frustrations? Do you listen? Please put those comments in there. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day and take care, Josiah. So thank you.
I'll take it easy.